of the last 24 hours. Powered by Yiddish24, provided to you by The Click. Good morning. Today is Chai Kislev Tufshim Pai Vov. Oh, it's the Monday, Parshas Vayeshev, and December 7th, Tufshin 25. My name is Gershy Schwarcz, and I'm your host on Edge. Today's episode is sponsored to you by Brightpath. Go invest in the S&P 500 and tech retirement funds so you'll have enough money when you want to marry your kids. Sure, very good advice. But what, how do you go about it? Well, you can call my friend at Brightpath, and he will guide you and help you set up your own portfolio. And if you have questions like, what do I do if I'm on government programs, or what about taxes, right? All this information, he will guide you in the right path to Brightpath to be able to invest in your future in the S&P 500 and other type of funds alike. So call him on, his number is 929-675-9115, or you can WhatsApp him on that number, 929-675-9115. The link is in the description below. And you can mention Code on Edge for a 10% discount. Code on Edge for a 10% discount. That's Brightpath Financials. After Trump said that he was disappointed that Zelensky didn't even read the peace proposal. You know, the people that don't like reading the small print? Well, he didn't read the entire proposal. Trump's team pulled President Vladimir Zelensky into the Miami peace talks directly on the phone. Trump advisors Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner had a 2-hour phone call yesterday with Zelensky and also to discuss territory and long-term security guarantees for Ukraine. The call wrapped up 3 days of intensive negotiations in Miami between senior American and Ukrainian officials over President Trump's proposed peace plan to end the war. That phone call came right after Witkoff and Kushner held a 5-hour meeting in Moscow on Tuesday with Russian President Vladimir Putin to go over the same plan. Ukraine's sea drones have pushed much of Russia's Black Sea Navy back towards its ports, and Ukraine is now preparing more complex AI-guided attacks. Now listen to this. The commander of Group 13, the Ukrainian military intelligence unit that runs these uncrewed boats, let's call them, right? No crew on the boats, says that Russian warships, now usually what they do is they only go about 40 kilometers from the port to fire the missiles, attack, and then they quickly return because they want to hide, right? So Group 13, this unit, uses a types of drones. It's called Magura V5, V7 sea drones, including a larger V7 model that Ukraine has modified with American help, obviously. And, well, it could do more things. And the unit says that one of these drones already shot down a Russian fighter jet that we reported here on Edge in May. The commander, known only by, well, he's not known by name to everyone, so he's known by 13th, that's the call sign, says that the war is not making any difference at this point. They're fighting, well, to be honest with you, it's not making any difference. We all know this. They're fighting so long they forgot why they're fighting. But Russia has caught on and made themselves stronger. So the next step is to add more artificial intelligence so that the drones can stretch for targets themselves and tell civilian ships. Can search for targets themselves and tell civilian ships from military ones and need less work from human operators. Ukraine is also planning new joint projects with NATO countries, including Greece, to build more sea drones and expand training and information sharing at sea. We also know that America is working with them on drones. Anyway, this is so you know what's going on a little bit. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, let's talk about Israel now, shall we? Enough boring news for today, I'm joking. Says that he will not leave politics. He put out a video recently about his case and trial with a bug bunny. Well, you know, that's the case. Bugs Bunny and cigars, he says. That's what they're fighting for. That's what they want me arrested for. Bugs Bunny, he says, no politician in history has ever been charged or brought to court for 3 years, and even more, he says, over a Bugs Bunny and cigars. It doesn't make any sense. That's what he's saying. Anyway, even if he receives a presidential pardon, in his corruption trial, he says he's not going to leave politics. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz is visiting Israel now, and at a press conference, Netanyahu was asked directly if he would retire from political life if pardoned, and he said, with one word, no. In that same press conference, Netanyahu also said that Israel is close to starting the second phase of the Gaza plan, which is supposed to keep Hamas disarmed and Gaza demilitarized while Israel keeps overall security control. He says he will meet American President Donald J. Trump later this month to discuss the second phase. Netanyahu was also told Merz from Germany, that Israel will not annex the West Bank, that's Yehuda Shomron, in the near future, but stressed that annexation remains a subject for future discussion and that Israel insists on long-term security control in those areas. At the same time, the White House is working on a summit between Netanyahu and Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, which would be their first public meeting since 2017. They've been quiet on that front. and would also focus on stabilizing Gaza and strengthening economic ties. Reports say the United States wants Israel to approve a very large long-term natural gas deal with Egypt and offer other incentives before Sisi agrees to host the meeting. A secret trilateral meeting happened, for those of you who don't even know what's going on, in New York, between Israel, Qatar, and the United States, hosted by White House envoy Steve Witkoff, to repair relations after an Israeli strike. For those of you who remember, they tried and failed to bomb the building in Qatar, in Doha, on September, that supposedly was supposed to kill all the Hamas leaders, but something gave, I guess, and killed only one security officer there. Mossad chief David Barnea, who is supposed to be retiring very soon, for those of you who know, who follow the news on Edge, represented Israel there, and the talks focused on keeping Qatar involved in the Gaza ceasefire, in hostages and prisoner mediation, and possible reconstruction plans. Qatar recently put out a post and said that Israel was the one funneling cash to Hamas, and Israel was the one responsible. Obviously, they set up Hamas once a long time ago for peace and for security in that region to control. So they claimed that the whole point that Qatar is kind of hosting Hamas, it's not fair to blame it on them when Israel themselves put them there. Whatever, that was another piece of news that I saw recently. And American citizens in Cotonou, the main city of Benin in West Africa, were told by the US Embassy to shelter in place after reports of heavy gunfire, explosions, and an attempted coup near government buildings. The embassy warned Americans to stay inside while security forces and mutinous soldiers reportedly clashed in different parts of the city. South Africa, speaking of Africa, has revoked a long-standing 90-day visa exemption for Palestinian passport holders after investigators traced a charter flight that brought about 153 people from Gaza through Kenya into Johannesburg, and said that Israeli actors connected to voluntary immigration efforts had abused the visa-free system. Well, it kind of reminds me of the buses that flooded our cities with illegal immigrants recently during the Biden administration. I remember it. Now, Edgware Studios, part of what we do, right, on Edge, we also produce ads and hotline ads. Yesterday, we were filming something called the PENPAL device. PENPAL is like, I would say, it's a key fob to their great collection of Yiddish books, educational books for your children. Now, Hanukkah is coming, and we all want to buy some gifts for our children. This is a great gift to buy. It's a great buy. Believe you me, it's a great buy. Now, you can enter a raffle. Let me tell you about this, first of all. PENPAL is a device that works with a set of special educational books for your children in Yiddish. Your child opens up the book, touches the page with a pen, and the pen starts talking. It has two modes. It reads the story out loud or interacts with them, plays fun games with them. And the Yiddish books, well, they range from baby age up to bar mitzvah age, and even some adults might find it useful. Buy it as a Hanukkah gift in all toy and Judaica stores and even major supermarkets. PENPAL grows with a kid, so new books keep on coming. Yeah, keep on being added to this amazing collection. And it's super simple to load and update. So to enter this raffle, like I said, for a full PENPAL set with the books, call or text us 845-671-1775, press 5, and leave your name and phone number and say PENPAL on Edge. The raffle, the drawing, will take place next Sunday by Ezra Hashem Yisborach. Again, say PENPAL on Edge. You can text or call us with that and say your name and number. Very clear, please. Okay, very clear. Make sure if it's not clear, we won't be able to enter you in the raffle, unfortunately, because we can't hear the number and name. Okay, so make sure to enter your name and number, and you'll win a PENPAL device with a set of books anywhere in the world. Doesn't make a difference where you are. We will make sure it gets to you. All right. After 11 people were killed in the United States strike on a drug boat in the Caribbean, top Democrats in Congress are demanding that the Pentagon release the video of the second follow-up strike. Now, the controversy is about the September attack, which 9 people died in the first strike and 2 more were reportedly killed about an hour later as they clung onto the wreckage of the capsized boat. The Washington Post reported that Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth was told to have said "kill them all," a claim both Hegseth and Admiral Frank Bradley denied, while legal experts say the justification for the second strike is legally weak and may amount to a war crime. Donald J. Trump says he has no problem releasing the footage, but Hegseth has not promised to do so, and says his team is still reviewing the process and must protect sensitive information, even as Congress continues its investigation of the wider Caribbean boat strike campaign. Republican Senator Tom Cotton, who chairs the Senate Intelligence Committee and has seen the classified video, says it is not gruesome, nothing remarkable, and defends the legality of the second strike, arguing that the men on the capsized boat were still on valid military target and and not in a state of distress on a plank of wood in the ocean like subsequent survivors were. Let's talk about your business surviving. Now, you don't want to be subject of a second strike on your business. I'm joking. The point is that if you felt like your business is going downhill, maybe you need some advice. And the best person to get this advice from is from Reb David Wanunu. Reb David Wanunu, well, Mazel Tov, Reb David, on your einikel, the bris of your einikel. I want to tell you that people are calling you, and I know that you called me to tell me slow down because I'm getting so many calls, but it's great because, the word spreads fast. And Reb David Wanunu is a great business guide and a business coach. You can call him at 845-414-8100. Mention on Edge for a good discount. Okay. At a Somali Independence Day event in Minneapolis in June 2024, former Somali Prime Minister Hassan Ali Khayri told the pro-Omar crowd that the interests of Ilan are not Ilan's herself. It is not the interest of Minnesota, nor is it the interest of the American people. The interests of Ilan is that of Somalian people and Somalia. The success of Ilan is the success of Somalia, and urged them to give him money and votes. Now, President Donald J. Trump is calling Somali immigrants in Minnesota garbage and saying he does not want them in the country, while his border chief, Tom Homan, defends tougher ICE operations in Minnesota and insists they target people with removal orders or criminal cases, not the wider Somali community. In the background is the huge Feeding Our Future, that's what quotes, Feeding Our Future pandemic meal fraud case, where more than 70 people, many of them Somali Americans, are charged with stealing tens of millions of dollars, and new sentences include 10 years in prison and nearly $48 million in restitution. Trump allies point to the fraud and say it proves the need for deportations and cuts to refugee protection, while Omar says the fraud is real and shameful, but warns that Trump's language is putting many law-abiding Somali Americans in fear. President Trump just pardoned Kuela, a Democrat, and his wife on federal bribery and money laundering charges, then went online to accuse him of such a lack of loyalty, something that Texas voters and Henry's daughters will not like after Kuela filed for re-election as a Democrat. Kuela says he thanked Trump for the pardon, but made no deal to switch parties, and he plans to stay a conservative Democrat and run again in his South Texas district. Next time, Trump should add that in his small print of the pardon, maybe. New York City's next mayor is telling immigrants that they do not have to talk to ICE or open the door. Zohran Mamdani, the next New York City mayor, which is swearing posted a video on Sunday after federal immigration raid in Manhattan, explaining that people in the United States have the right to refuse to speak with ICE, to film agents as long as they do not interfere, and to keep them out of homes, schools, and private work areas, unless the agents show a warrant signed by a judge. In the video, he said, "We can all stand up to ICE if you know your rights." Mamdani also told viewers, ICE is legally allowed to lie to you, but you have the right to remain silent. If you're being detained, you may always ask, "Am I free to go?" repeatedly until they answer you. He linked the message to a recent ICE operation on Canal Street near Chinatown in Manhattan that drew protests and reminded people that New York has about 3 million immigrants. Mamdani, who is scheduled to be sworn in as your mayor on January 1st, promised that New York will always welcome immigrants, and I will fight each and every day to protect, support, and celebrate our immigrants, brothers and sisters. A man in critical condition after a stabbing attack on Charlotte, North Carolina commuter train, the second knife attack on that light rail system since August. The attack comes less than 4 months ago after 23-year-old Ukrainian refugee Irene Zarutska was killed and stabbed in a separate stabbing on the same Charlotte light rail network, a case that already raised strong concern about crime and safety on public transit. President Donald J. Trump reacted to the new stabbing on Truth Social, writing, "Another stabbing by an illegal immigrant on Charlotte, North Carolina. What's going on in Charlotte? Democrats are destroying that place like everything else, piece by piece," and signed off President DJT. Police in Louisiana are still searching for one escaped inmate, a murder suspect, after 3 prisoners escaped from the St. Landry Parish jail in whatever that place is called. Okay, detectives and SWAT teams are pursuing 24-year-old Keith Eli, probably, who has been at large for 3 days and was being held on a second-degree murder charge. The sheriff, Bobby J, let's call him, says that the three escaped after they found a weak part of an upper wall in the prison, slowly removed the mortar between the concrete blocks and pulled enough blocks out of the way to pass through, then used sheets to climb over the outer wall from the first floor, not to stab themselves and scratch themselves from the barbed wire from the first floor roof. And he stated, "We would prefer that he surrender himself peacefully, but we will not rest until he is captured." In other news, a water leak at the Louvre Museum in Paris has damaged between 300 and 400 artworks in the Egyptian Antiques Library in the Louvre. This comes only weeks after thieves stole jewelry worth about $100 million from the Louvre, and critics say both the heist and the leak show serious neglect of the museum's aging pipes, security systems, and basic maintenance. Well, after the heist didn't work, a clever insurance stunt might do the trick. I don't know. President Donald J. Trump says he has approved Japanese-style tiny cars to be built in the United States of America, calling them cars of the near future, the very near future. He wrote on Truth Social, "I have just approved tiny cars to be built in America," after expressing admiration for Kei cars, Kei cars, the very small low-cost vehicle that is very common in Japan and other parts of Asia. These cars are shorter and narrower than typical American vehicles and are designed for narrow streets and lower speeds with lower prices and high fuel economy. Trump says they can run on gasoline, electric or hybrid systems and calls them inexpensive, safe, fuel efficient and quite simply amazing. But regulators still need to work out how such models can meet United States safety and vehicle standards. I'm in sizes, I'm joking. The National Park Service has removed Martin Luther King Jr. Day and Juneteenth from the list of fee-free days at U.S. national parks, while adding June 14th, which is both Flag Day and President Donald Trump's birthday, as a new free entry day. CDC advisors have voted to end the rule that all newborns in the United States should receive a hepatitis B shot at birth. Well, a must, basically. Under the new recommendation, only babies whose mothers test positive for hepatitis B are clearly advised to get the vaccine immediately after birth. House Speaker Mike Johnson spent Sunday afternoon in New Square in Square Shtetl, sitting with the Square Rebbe Shlita and talking about possible private meeting with Donald J. Trump himself. Congressman Mike Lawler told the crowd in Square that he's working to arrange a private meeting in Washington between the president and the Rebbe Shlita in the coming months. Johnson and Lawler came to New Square after a fundraiser in Stony Point for Lawler's re-election campaign, and then spent time with the Rebbe speaking about community needs and national politics. Toronto police, for those of you who remember, not long ago there was such an incident in Golders Green, England. Toronto police are investigating vandalism at 6250 Bathurst Street. 6250 Bathurst Street, an apartment building in North York, Toronto, in Canada, where between 15 and 20 mezuzahs were torn off the doors of Jewish homes. Many elderly Russian-speaking Jewish residents live there in that building. Toronto Mayor Olivia Chow condemned the incident as a hateful attack on seniors and Jewish groups and are calling for a full investigation and the arrest of those responsible. Before we continue, a quick word from our sponsors. Have you ever tried Shawarma Delight? If not, I advise you to go stop next to Bingo, Shawarma Delight, 26 Spring Valley Marketplace, which is in Muncie, exit 14. If you ever stop by, if you're going to fly in, you need to go shawarma on the way to the airport, whatever it is. SDNY.store. I'm not saying it's on the way to the airport, but make it the way to the airport. SDNY.store. And mention our net for a free drink. YS Capital Group for a loan if you want to invest in a building, You borrow money from YS Capital Group, 718-831-2168. Arrive Express, 845-622-1111. Arrive Express, 845 from Monroe, 845-254-1111. And Protobyte, 347-354-1237. Protobyte for your app and web development. Okay, all in one place. 347-354-1237. Historical facts of the day, and here is a clear. Here is your facts of the day. Sorry. Today is the yortzeit of Reb Baruch ben Reb Yechiel Michel of Mezbish. Zeichet Tzadik v'Kudosh Levrucha. He's a grandson of the Baal Shem Tov. Today, Chai Kislev. There's a known Zegillah on his yortzeit for Rafia, for Rafua. For those of you who want to know, you can already go to the. No, yeah, okay, fine, it's good. From the Luach Dvar Be'itoy. For those of you who know the Luach Dvar Be'itoy, there's a Segillah to say the Tehillim Perik. I'll tell you the Perukim. Perik Dalet, Perik Yitzayin, Perik Samach Gimel Samach Hey, and Perik Kif Tesvuv, and also Kif Zayin. I'm sorry about that. And Perik Kif Lamed Zayin, Kif Lamed Ches, and Kif Nian. If you'd like, to daven for someone or for a fear, you should do this on this day. In his name, light a candle. In his name, your Reb Yechiel. His name is Reb Baruch ben Reb Yechiel Michel of Mezbish. May his neshama have an aliyah. And tonight is Yad Kislev, the yortzeit of the founder of the Lubavitcher Chassidus, the Baal Tanya. What great days we're living in, Baruch Hashem. Anyway, may Mashiach come in their chus and bring us all good news. Imhero v'yameinu, amen, and stay informed and stay on edge. And I'll see you all tomorrow. Thank you.
Your daily report of the news of the last 24 hours, powered by Yiddish24, provided to you by The Click.